Hello and welcome to the AUBG Office Hours podcast. As you might see, I've gotten a haircut, but that doesn't change who I am, so I hope that doesn't intervene. And today I have with me Professor Carter Mandrik. How are you feeling?
Good. I have not had a haircut, and I need one. But other than that, I'm fine.
Spring break's coming, so you have plenty of choices.
Yes.
Can you briefly introduce yourself?
Yeah. My name's Carter Mandrik. I'm American, originally from New York City, but grew up most of my life in New Jersey. And I've been living overseas outside the U.S. since 1999 in several different countries.
All right, we'll get to that. First of all, I would like you to answer 5 quick questions.
But first, let me just say also that I teach marketing in the business department today.
That was one of my questions.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. So maybe we'll start with that. You teach marketing, and what other courses?
The ones that I teach here, I teach marketing, like the basic marketing class, which you took and did very well in.
Thank you.
I teach marketing communications, and which is, like advertising and promotion, and I teach marketing research. Mm-hmm. So those are the only 3 courses I taught here, but in my other schools that I used to work for, I also taught retail management, retailing, and I taught international marketing. I taught consumer behavior. That was like my standard course for, decades basically. And I also taught strategy, like upper level strategic, not even marketing, it was like business strategy capstone class for strategy.
Do you miss teaching some of those?
I do. I miss consumer behavior. I miss it. But, Professor Petkov here, he's teaching consumer behavior, and that's his area. And we kind of want to just have separate fields. So I don't want to take his stuff and, disrupt his stuff like that.
Yeah, understandable.
But I do miss teaching consumer behavior. It was a lot of fun.
What would you say are some of the main takeaways from these marketing courses? Not just the ones you teach, but in general, like from the marketing concentration here.
Good question. It depends on which particular course. But, for example, with the marketing course, it's very principles, very fundamental. So there's the basic ideas of marketing. But besides the things that you would need to know to be theoretically, there's also, I think, giving the examples from real life business, try to show what works, what doesn't work, but how, you learn some of the soft skills about being a marketer, like managing a team of people, interacting with the other departments, because, marketing, to be honest, we're the center of the universe when it comes to the company. I know a lot of other teachers and other disciplines think that their disciplines are the most important, like finance, human resources, but really it's marketing.
But you don't think that, right, about yourself?
No, I do think it. Marketing is the ultimate, it's the main primary lifeblood of the company.
All right, we'll get to marketing in detail in a bit. I have 2 other questions, actually. So first of all, how long have you been at AUBG?
I have been at AUBG. This is my 4th semester. So I came in fall 2021. I think. Wait. 2021, no, fall. Yeah, fall 2021.
Wonderful. And maybe you can tell me when, so kind of what was the progress? Where did you get your education and how did you come here?
Okay. I started off with an undergraduate degree in biology, so BS in biology from Virginia Polytechnic Institute in New York. And then I got my MBA, Master's in Business Administration, from the same school, Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. And I concentrated in marketing, so I had a concentration in marketing. Then my undergraduate, I minored in psychology too, so it was a biology major with a minor in psychology. Then I was out working for a couple of years and went back to get my Ph.D. in marketing at Virginia Tech, and I also minored in psychology then at the Ph.D. level, which was interesting. After graduating, I got a job in Istanbul at a university there, like one of the top universities in Turkey, It's like kind of like a Harvard of Turkey, if you will, very elite private school, Koç University. And then I left Koç after 6 years, and I moved into private sector, and I became like the marketing director of the company called Soutash, which is the largest dairy company in Turkey. And I stayed there for 4 years, and then I moved to Ukraine. I got married and moved to Ukraine, and lived there for about a year. Then I got a job in Hong Kong teaching at a university there, just as a short-term position. And then I got a job at Middle East Technical University, Northern Cyprus campus in Cyprus. And I was there for 11 years. Then I came here.
I didn't know that you could take like minors at the PhD level.
You can. You definitely can, which was interesting because for me, consumer behavior is all about psychology, or not all, but, you can really see a lot of implications for understanding consumers. So, I took a lot of courses to get better at my understanding of like social psychology, especially.
Yeah, that's what interested me because I know, you don't teach it here, consumer behavior, but that's where the psychology really shines. So before we get to the current date, I'm interested to hear, you switched from biology to marketing.
Yeah, that seems like a big switch. Yeah, that's a good question too. When I was an undergraduate, I did a lot of like extracurricular leadership activities. I was involved, in a fraternity. I don't know if you know what a fraternity is. They don't have it here. It's like a social club, but you live with the guys. They become your brothers. You live in a fraternity house instead of a dorm. Or it's like all run by the brothers. It's what you call them. Like they become like your really close friends. So there was a lot of leadership opportunities because of the fraternity system. There was 26 fraternities and I think 8 sororities, which is the female equivalent. So, women would be in the sororities. And there was a common government, like student government. So I did a lot of leadership with the Interfraternity Council. And the administration noticed that, because I was always working with the Dean of Students and the Assistant Dean of Students office. So they saw all the things that I had done, and they just offered me really like out of the blue. They said, do you want to come back and work for the Dean of Students office, and we'll pay, you'll be like an assistant in the office, and we'll pay for your MBA, give you housing and, like a scholarship, basically like a stipend. And it was an offer that was too good to refuse. And also at the same time, I don't know, I just didn't want to, I wasn't like the kind of guy that wanted to be in a laboratory, like as a lab assistant for, like what could you do? It was kind of a boring life to think like that. So I thought, I'm interested in, kind of business, and I liked psychology, and I liked the way, I liked advertising. So I just took that opportunity, and it really changed my life.
Led you to marketing.
Yeah.
How would you've given a textbook definitions in class, but how would you define marketing, like if you were to put it in your own words?
To define it for like a 5-year-old kid?
I'm not a 5-year-old kid, but you can do whatever.
Well, marketing is just how we create value for the things that a company might sell. Like you can sell products or you can sell services. So the marketer's job is just to make those products that the company produces, make them as valuable as possible to consumers so that they want to buy more of those, whatever the company's making. Let's call it the brand. Mm-hmm. So marketers are interested in creating strong brands. And a good marketer can do that and make people want their brand more than they want to buy the competitors, let's say, but still be profitable for the company. So the marketer's job is really to create the brand that consumers want, and in that way, it makes the company grow. The more they sell, the more money they make. Is
like, I think this ties back to what you said, that it's like the core concept of a whole company.
Right, because the whole thing about marketing is to create exchanges, like to create things that people want and experiences, and satisfy them. Right. So if you create like a loyal customer, the company stays in business. But if you don't have loyal customers, or if you don't have new customers, or if you're not making sales, right, then the company can't stay in business. So the marketer is central to keeping the company in business and growing the company.
Mm-hmm.
That's why, in marketers, they're really involved. Like they are, they're managing and they're working with all the other departments, finance, production, purchasing, HR, and sales, the sales team. We have to work really closely with all these partners internally, but we also work really closely with all the external partners, our distributors, our suppliers, marketing research agencies, advertising agencies, promotion firms, all these different firms, product design companies. So, the marketer is really involved in all these different aspects. That's what makes it, so exciting.
You say exciting so it's not like you learn some theory and then you go and just rinse and repeat it. So in practice, this job, how does it kind of translate from the books to actually the...
That's another really good question. Good job.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You could do this for a living. Well, the interesting thing is that, the marketer has to understand these theories and how they apply. So they understand theories about how consumers think, how people think. So psychology, economics, sociology, all these things are kind of providing a lot of like a lens to look at the consumer's behavior and understand them and be able to predict them and develop theories and strategies, right, to reach them. So that's what the marketer does, takes these theories but applies them to the real life business world. And then, the thing that kind of makes it most exciting is, for example, participating in research projects. So that you see, like, you do focus groups and you go there, you go to the agency, you watch how they're doing things. Participating in advertising shoots was the most fun. Like, you go and you sit and you watch the director and you have the cameraman and you're participating in the process too. Like, you're not just an observer, you're there to help make sure that your brand is shown in the right way, that they're not making any mistakes, choosing the wrong color shirt, for example. You don't want to have your competitors' colors, right, in an advertisement, or you don't want the wrong types of products on the table when it's like, if you're the like what happened one time was we produce dairy products, butter, we're the leader in butter, but they have like a bottle of olive oil on this table, and that's like our competitor. So we don't want that. So as a marketer, you're constantly involved with all these kind of fun things where, I make the comparison with like an accountant, right? Not that accounting is bad, right? But it's a necessary thing, but it's not for me. It's like, I don't want to just sit there and stare at a computer and count things all day and write numbers. I want to be involved with and see the product is like designing a new product. It's like your baby. I've done that. I've done the actual product design, worked and created something and created a promotion that out of nowhere created new things that nobody saw before. And that's what makes it so exciting if you're good at it. I mean, not everybody, just like not everybody, I'm not good at accounting. I'm terrible, really. But some people aren't good marketers, and some people are. And it's like, if you find that you fit into that and you do it, it's like such a great feeling doing something that you're good at and getting paid for it.
That leads me to kind of think, so from what I'm getting is like at the core, it's all about how you communicate, not with your team, but also how you communicate to your audience, to your external. Everything is about like communicating the right information.
But not just communicating, it's also design, like listening, like understanding what they wants and needs are of the people, maybe using marketing research to find out, creating the things that they want, including the product, right? Designing the product or service, and then yes, communicating the benefits and things that they look for.
Just a second.
Take your time, we'll edit this out.
Yeah, I forgot my question, yeah.
About communicating.
Communication, yeah. I'll go to something that I wanted to ask beforehand, because you said that it's about, so in essence there's a lot of application of theory, but have you found, maybe you did a Ph.D. in this, I guess, how often did you find that these theories break, like in reality? Do they break even?
Do they work? You mean, do they not work?
Yeah.
Oh, that's an interesting question too. Good job. Well, I never saw something where I said, this theory didn't hold up, because the ones that you get taught, the ones that make it to the top, there's lots of little theories. As like researchers are working on stuff all around the world. So many research articles are being published, but the ones that make it into the textbooks and the ones that we're taught in marketing and the ones that we try to put into practice are the ones that really rise to the top, like the cream. So these are the ones that have withstood the test of time, the ones that have been challenged in theory tests and research and then have been shown. You can never really prove that a theory is true, but you can disprove one and show that it's not working. That's just the way scientific method works. We never really prove, we just provide support for theory. So a lot of these theories that we're like using, they are so powerful and they've already been tested. So a good marketer, uses the knowledge that they've gained in this education and theory, but also other things about marketers that, you have to have a bit of intuition and a bit of creativity, a lot of creativity sometimes, and people skills, like working with people. That, to be honest, that was one of my biggest failings or drawbacks, was that, I came from an academic environment as a Ph.D, a teacher, but I had never worked in a large corporation before I just became marketing director. I was the only non-Turk in a company of 3,000 people. All of them were Turkish. I'm an American, so my assistant was helping me do translation. Like I had to learn to speak Turkish, and thankfully I did. But my biggest failing was that I was not a good, politician kind of a person politically, and I wasn't a good people person. So I knew the theories, I knew the marketing logic, I knew the knowledge, I knew how to do things. But, the conflict management, it's different out in the real world. Like in academia, we can be idealistic. We know what should be, how everything should work. But it's not like that in the real world. Everything is a bit dirty and like broken a lot of times. You're putting out fires left and right. You're kind of just trying to do the best you can. People are making mistakes. Your bosses are kind of sometimes, doing things wrong, and you have to try to persuade them to do the right thing. So it's really kind of messy. And that was my failing. It was like I wasn't patient enough. I was, really emotionally involved with every decision. When you should just kind of relax and just say, okay, take a deep breath. Everything is like, you can't change the world. You just try to do the best you can. It's an imperfect place. Don't be idealistic. Just, you're going to get paid whether this, someone else makes a mistake or not. It's not your fault. Just do the job and get it done and, be positive. And that was I took everything on my shoulders. I was so emotionally involved. And, I ended up getting kind of frustrated, and like I actually started taking, anti-anxiety, those pills, because my doctor was like, oh, you're a different person now than you were 4 years ago. You can see you're like stressed. You're so stressed. He's like, just take these for a while. You'll calm down. And I did. And, luckily only for about 6 months. But it was like I was a stress case for a long time.
Was that cause of anxiety because like you couldn't have control over it, like, or because it wasn't happening the way it was supposed to happen?
Yeah, yes and no. There was a lot of things going on, a lot of like political maneuvering, and people can be pretty sneaky. Maybe you didn't know this, but about the real world, but sometimes in business life, people will be like to your face, like hugging you and like you're the best, and with a knife that they just want to stab you in the back with, And you run into these people, and it's just a fact of life. In academia, you don't see it too much because you are really responsible for everything. You're like your own boss when you're working as a teacher. Yes, of course, you've got the dean and you've got to do things, but no one's really looking over your shoulder and making sure you do something. And there's no boss that you're trying to impress that's going to give you a promotion. Or there's no people below you who are fighting for your position, right? So here in academia, it's a very much more relaxed environment in that sense. But in the business world, it's really kind of like dog eat dog. And I wasn't prepared for that. And there was a lot of political maneuvering, like people that jockeying to, to get on your good side, and there's people above you that are trying to take your ideas and present them as if they're their own, and kind of maybe trying to torpedo you so that you fail a little bit and make you stumble so that you don't look so good. So you have to kind of navigate this a little bit, but you have to do it with diplomacy and make, and I wasn't prepared for that. That's like now, much looking back, I wish I had the patience I have now. I'm much more patient, believe it or not. I'm sure you've seen this in class.
Very patient, I think. With that in mind, with all this stuff the things that you're explaining, makes me think. So if everyone's kind of trying to get to on your good side, you eventually, from what you've told us in class, you started as a clerk there. Is that correct? Or was
I'm sorry, what started
You
out?
started as a clerk at Soutash.
A clerk?
Not a clerk, but like a marketing assistant.
Oh, consultant. No.
I'm sorry, I confused that.
Yeah, I started off the position, because they don't like to hire people at high levels without knowing what they're capable of. So it was like they give you a kind of a trial, and they made me a consultant internally. Though I said, okay, look, I want to be actually what I told them was I wanted to be a consultant part-time. So I'll work, I said I gave them a contract for 10 hours a week for them, and I wanted to be able to be working as a consultant for other companies. But they made me a counter offer and said, no, we want you to work full-time for us, and we'll just call you an internal consultant to the CEO, the top owner of the company, CEO, and the marketing director. So they put me through this one year trial period. Then I got promoted to the head of strategy. I forget what the title they called it. Not director of strategy, I can't remember, but head of strategy and business development, and then promoted to marketing director. So I started off as an internal consultant.
Okay, I understand now. And that was, I don't know how appropriate it is to ask this, but like you said that it's about kind of navigating diplomatically, and a lot of people were kind of, from what I understand, people were trying to get to these positions. Was that the case, or was it?
Yeah.
My question is like, did they award you like the director's position because of like performance, that kind of stuff? Could you say some stuff about that?
Yeah, sure. See, I was the least diplomatic person that, I just did everything to the best of my ability. And I have this kind of thing that I never want to do less than I'm capable of, especially if I'm in a position where it's visible. So, for example, I'd never want to come to class unprepared. It'd be the worst thing to stand up there and not know what you would say, right? So in this position, I was working with the CEO and the top two people that were making decisions, the marketing director and the CEO. And I had to kind of, at that time, just provide them all the strategy for the business, not just marketing strategy, but business strategy from the top, including writing the mission statement, the vision statement. And they also made me, my job was actually I was so tough. I was an internal consultant for marketing. So I was every product group, every brand group in this company, I had to read their marketing, I had developed their marketing plans with their current managers. So I was reading all the past research, all the past marketing plans, looking into the future and helping to create their strategy for every product and every brand in the company. Wow. Yeah, I was a busy guy. And so they were testing me. And I also, at the same time, was institutionalizing what marketing meant. So I had given them a kind of template for their marketing plans. I created a internal marketing research department. We hired new people. That was my first position of authority. They also actually made me the temporary product manager, the head product manager for two product categories. Their flagship product categories, yogurt, which was their flagship category, and ayran, which was their other flagship category. So I created these marketing programs, and I was temporary the head guy for both of those. And I created these amazing marketing programs and that transformed both brands and became this huge success in the products and the marketing programs. We actually won awards for both categories. And that was noticed. I mean, the successes that I had were noticed. I was doing extremely well. But there was also a little bit of, maybe some jealousies among the younger people that were trying to be, and I could see that, like my reports sometimes, like, they're like, who is this guy? He doesn't have any experience, in yogurt. He doesn't have any experience in Iran. Where did he come from? He just, now he's my boss. I don't get it. So I had to kind of win them over, but I didn't do it very diplomatically, let's say. I could have been more, my leadership skills were lacking, I think. Mm-hmm. But the success, you couldn't argue with the success, and that's why they, gave me these promotions.
Maybe we can just add some context here. Can you just kind of say a few words about Soutash, like as a company?
Soutash, oh my God, the owner of the company, Muharrem Yilmaz, is the most dynamic, brilliant. I can't say enough about him as a leader. I mean, the guy is just a genius when it comes to business, and I think in marketing as well. He's just got great intuition, and they are a local company. They're not an international. I mean, they have now international. They have an operation in Macedonia. They have in northern Macedonia. They have another operation, I think, now in India, and another one in I forget, Kazakhstan maybe. I forget, but they at the time when I first joined them, they were a little bit in second place in terms of overall dairy market, and they had just lost leadership in a certain type of yogurt that Danone had come in and taken over, but we ended up taking it back in the next year, and never, we got much bigger and better over the next few years. They were a great company, but they were built on great distribution first. So their marketing was catching up. They were still good at marketing, but they became better and better over time. So very competitive company, very good company, and loved, like a very well-loved dairy brand. Like they're the company that, if you're a Turk, you love basically Soutash products. The Iran is number one, yogurt is number one, they've got number one cheeses, number one in butter. I mean, they're really the great brand in Turkey. I love them. I can't say enough about Soutash. I love you, Soutash.
You'll hear those stories and more if you take a class with Professor Mandrik.
That's true.
We heard a lot of those. Okay, so what I'm gathering from this, and again, what we've learned in class, it's this complex web of so many factors that you have to account for in order to be effective as a marketer. From marketing research, maybe you can kind of say a few words about that as well. What does it entail in general?
Marketing research.
Yeah, but on the very superficial level, because we can go really deep.
Yeah, I mean, basically marketing research is just trying, think of it as like shining a light in a forest, right? Imagine you're in a dark forest where you don't know, and you don't know where the trails are. You're going to run into some trees, right? Especially if you're trying to run fast, right? So that's what you want to do in business, is try to be quick. Marketing research is like shining a flashlight in a dark forest and just finding the right way. So you get answers to questions that you have decisions to make. In marketing, you're constantly making decisions, just like when you play football, soccer or football, right? The person that's playing football is making decisions, 10,000 decisions a game, who to pass to, where to run, what to do every second, right? Marketing is the same way. But these decisions, they can't just be made with your own gut instincts or your own like, oh, I think that's the right way. It's got to be made with respect to what's happening in the environment. And that includes, like, the most important is what do customers think? How do they feel? What do they want? What are your competitors doing? What's the competitor products like? How is your product better or worse than competitors? So all this marketing research just tries to fill in the gaps and lets you try to make the best decisions that you can based on this research. Sometimes the research is done internally, but oftentimes it's done through external agencies.
Would you say there is a case where there's too much research?
Can I say there's a case for the company when there's too much research?
Yeah,
in the world.
When in the company, when you do so much research, you kind of get clouded vision.
Yeah, they call that, do you know the word that they call that? They call that analysis paralysis.
All right. a lot of stuff, a lot of things to think about as a marketer. Maybe we can shift our focus a little bit to talk about. So it sounds wonderful, but what are some of the maybe main issues that, because we also touched upon this in class. So like, what are the main issues that come with marketing, brand building, and that kind of stuff? And it's on the side of, what should I say, consume or not providing the value that a company is supposed to provide, and what's the interpretation of value, or is it a
you're
bit?
Gonna have to simplify this question because I got lost. Sorry.
Okay. So let's start simple. So in the beginning, you mentioned that it's about providing value, but value is kind of a subjective thing.
Creating value.
Creating value, and marketing has seen some criticism in that regard. Maybe can you kind of run through some of the basic touch points, some of the main criticisms that marketers get?
I think I see where you're going. Like, you could actually say, what is marketing criticized for?
Yeah.
And I, to be honest, I think there are many valid criticisms. You could say that marketing is bad because it makes people want too many things. You could say that marketers show what the good life is, try to make people want, because they, the materialistic world, like, oh, look at flashy, you could live a life like this and spend more. But we know now that the world is a finite place, right? There's limited resources, and so the issue of sustainability, for example, has become extremely important for all of us, and it should be. But there's this tension between marketing, that marketers are trying to make people consume more, because of course when we do that, the company grows, we make more money. But sustainability says, well, we should try to consume less and try to preserve the resources for future generations. So this is a really a big tension and a potential conflict. Like, how do we manage to do these things? How do you, get people to buy more, or how do you make the company grow, but at the same time recognize that you can't just destroy the environment? Or, also think about paying living wages. Like, as marketers or as business people, we want to get our raw materials or our supplies at the lowest price. So this might mean getting things made in a country where the minimum wage that people make is like very low, and their standard of living is very low, and we try to get the products at the cheapest possible price so we can make the biggest profit. But if we do that, we might have children working, and making products like shoes for pennies, and working 12-hour days and being really disadvantaged, or polluting their environments, like polluting some country's environment because it's, their government doesn't make them have regulations for controlling the waste. So, as marketers, we can choose to do that and make the maximum profit at the expense of everything else in the world, of the people, of the environment. Or we can make the tough choices and say, okay, well, let's try to have fair trade in our resource, in our supply chain, like pay people a living wage and have better, let them have a better standard of living. It's going to increase our costs, but that's a choice we can make. Let's have greener production, use greener resources, sustainable sourcing. It's going to be perhaps more expensive, but again, that's a choice we can make. Instead of trying to get people to buy, the latest model of every time we come out with a new iPhone or new, iPad, don't try to convince them that the newest is necessary. Like, let them use the old one for a few years, So it's a tough thing. It's a really tough thing. It's a good question, though. Sustainability is the most important thing we're facing right now. The greenhouse gases and things like that, carbon emissions.
When you were working in the private sector, have you had to make these sorts of decisions?
Great question. Interestingly, I never was involved in that, because in the dairy company back in that time, sustainability wasn't the hot topic that it is now. But even though that I can say that, I can tell you the CEO, Muharrem Yilmaz, he was way ahead of the curve, way ahead of it. In fact, in the mission statement, I remember writing the mission statement.
You showed that in class, I remember.
Yeah, and he insisted on including this one statement about using the resources entrusted to us in the most efficient and basically in a sustainable fashion. And I was like, no, I don't think that's such a great thing. It's too production oriented. It's not consumer oriented. And he said no. He insisted on it. And he was right. I mean, it was already ingrained in the company to use resources in a very efficient way so we don't waste the world's resources. And he saw that and he insisted on that. So I think, the sustainability it's all about decision making. So if the top decision makers are saying, let's do things this way, then they will. They'll get done that way, right? In fact, just here at AUBG, on Monday, I think it was Monday, right? We had this green fair, and we had 10 or 11 companies, startups that were sustainable. These are sustainable companies, and they were great. They had sustainable products, green products. There was cosmetics and soaps and coffee and other things. So this is kind of like showing that it's possible to be sustainable and create strong brands and profits at the same time.
Yeah. Do you feel though that some, maybe because it's a hot topic now and I'm not sure if they're pushing to kind of make it a regulation so that companies are more sustainable. Do you think that kind of creates this false sustainability promises in some companies?
They call that greenwashing, right? Mm-hmm. So a company might say, let's just say we're doing something green, we're supporting the environment, we're using green sources, environmental friendly resources, and they may not, right? And that's actually a big concern for consumers. A lot of consumers mistrust the claims. They mistrust the green claims that companies make, which also, if a company does this, and it feeds into this suspicion and makes consumers suspicious, and it just destroys the whole thing, because then consumers, they're not as motivated to consume sustainably or buy green products because they mistrust the green claims, right? Mm-hmm. So we've all got to, it does exist, but I think most companies, I believe most companies do try, if they say they're being green, I think we have to give them the benefit of the doubt until they prove us wrong. I think consumers need to do the best they can and make the best sustainably, environmentally friendly choices that they can. Mm-hmm. But I think that it involves some level of trust. Mm-hmm. And hopefully the regulations also will be catching up. The regulatory environment hopefully will increase the sustainability aspects.
Yeah, and it's an active dilemma here on campus as well. I know that we have a sustainability committee here.
I'm the chair of
the I heard that, and I was gonna ask about that. If you can kind of say maybe a few words about that and the action.
It's interesting. Like in my old school, I was part of this team that developed the first Center for Sustainability in Cyprus. My university, we created this Center for Sustainability, and I was part of the initial team that started just of the idea and the planning, and took years to get into effect. But I think the President Evans, he saw that on my resume, I guess, and so he just kind of handpicked me to become, they created the Sustainability Committee the first semester I was here, so he just said, okay, you can be the chair, and it's continued since then. And I know that sustainability is a very central pillar of AUBG. We try to be as sustainable as possible, but I also know that we have a lot of shortcomings. Like there's problems with the level of recycling on campus. There's problems with the level of food waste on campus. We really want to try, for example, to get a solar panel, energy production here, and we're looking into that. Actually, we've got now tenders being met by companies to look into the possibility. We've got a bunch of initiatives that we're doing, like try to get sustainability in the curriculum. We did a workshop last year. We're doing another one this year on April 4th. How to get more sustainability in the classroom, in the curriculum. We looked into developing a sustainability minor, and we did actually research on the students to gauge their interest, and they were very strongly interested in that.
Yeah, I saw that back in the fall. Maybe if this is an issue that is concerning, because it starts from us, like it's our behavior that really kind of produces these results.
But the school itself needs to provide the opportunities too, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we have more
Yeah.
recycling bins on campus,
Yeah.
and if we educate, for example, incoming freshmen about how to use, the recycling, then they'll do a better job. We have a water bottle reduction project too, that we try to reduce the amount of plastic water bottles consumed. So we put new water dispensers in all the buildings, and we're trying to increase the usage of reusable water bottles. In fact, that's another project to provide incoming freshmen with a water bottle that's branded with some sustainability concept, and try to as part of their incoming freshman gifts, and to sell more of these water bottles with the brand sustainability branding concept in the bookstore. We have a recycled paper project we're looking into now, using recycled paper. We've got a project now to reduce the energy, increase the waste, reduce waste and increase the recycling on campus as part of, like, we have key performance indicators, and to track our results. That's another project. We have so many. We have a carpooling project. We have, I don't know, I can't remember off the top of my head, but we're really trying to get a lot done, and there's so much to do, because although we put sustainability as one of our main themes, one of our main most important, pillars for AUBG, you can look and see, well, there's things where we can do better, and that's what we're trying to do.
So for improvement, definitely. I'd want one of those new bottles.
Okay, we'll see what we can do.
Okay, I'll be glad. Maybe, of course, this will be upcoming in the future, with all the education, the educations about how to be more sustainable, how to recycle properly, and that kind of stuff. Maybe can you give a short overview here? Maybe some of the not so obvious stuff that we can do to be more sustainable here on campus and in general.
The main thing, I think, if we look at what's the main driver of unsustainability, of problems in the world with carbon emissions, greenhouse gases, global warming, destruction of environment, threatening of endangered species, of the people that are disadvantaged all around the world. The main drivers of all these bad things is overconsumption. And as a marketer, I hate to say it, it's just partially marketing's problem that we created a monster. People love to consume, and we helped create this monster of people over-consuming. So the main problem is overconsumption. Yes, we can recycle, that helps, but reducing our consumption is really one of the main things that will help the most and the fastest. If we, instead of driving a large displacement car, like a big engine car, we drive a smaller car. Instead of getting a new car every 2 years, we just use the same car. If instead of buying new clothing every season, we just, we try. Fashion is probably the least sustainable industry in the world, because it's constantly changing. People are, new fashion comes out. Luckily, I'm not very fashionable, so I can get by wearing the same clothes for years. But for other people, it's like they have to have the newest, best thing all the time. And that mindset is what's killing us as a planet. It's just we need to kind of reduce our consumption. So, of course, you've heard these things like reduce, reuse, and recycle, the 3 R's, right? Reduce, reuse, recycle, and even repurpose. Like for me, it sounds silly, but I don't buy containers. I always just reuse containers. I wash them out and reuse them. I really take recycling very seriously. And I try not to buy new things if I don't need them.
I think that's a great message. And I agree. I've also thought of this, especially when I was taking the course with you. I was going to the store and I was thinking, it's not really about taking the recyclable package and then throwing it out in the yellow bin. It's more about not buying the whole thing at all. That would help the most.
Yeah, if you don't need it, don't buy it.
Yeah. We have some time left. Maybe we can kind of jump back into class for a bit, and you can talk about some of the theoretical applications of the stuff we learned in the marketing class, because we've talked about how we are introduced to these theories and these concepts, but we also have a practical part as part of these courses. So maybe you can shed some light on that.
Okay, let me just say, like, for example, translating some common theory into an application in marketing. Okay, we can maybe start there. So there's a very famous theory that if you kind of look it up on Google Scholar, okay, it's called the elaboration likelihood model. Okay, elaboration likelihood model. And I would teach this in marketing communications and in consumer behavior. And basically what it does is, it's been studied for decades and decades in academia, and you know, it came out, I don't know, maybe in the 1960s, I think. But it's this model that just looks at how people become persuaded, how they change their opinions based on how they process information. So originally it came out through political, like, you know, for political campaigns, they're trying to understand how can we influence people and persuade them to vote for our candidate versus another candidate. So they looked at like things like how important are various issues, you know, what's the important issues, but also how do we persuade people by when we communicate to them, what's the process that goes on, how do they think about it, and how do they make the decision, and how do they form an opinion. So this model, this elaboration likelihood model, just proposes two pathways to persuasion, a very kind of simple shortcut way and a very complex, like, you know, thoughtful, effortful way of thinking. And it's been tested and tested and tested. And so when it comes to designing advertisements, we know based on those principles of what it says about these two pathways to persuasion, we know that depending upon what type of product it is, what type of person they are, what type of situation they're in, when they, you know, what type of advertisement, you know, if it's a television ad or a print ad, magazine ad, newspaper, how do we construct the message to be the most persuasive that we can and to make them have a positive opinion for our brand? And there's so many interesting studies that have been done in this, and the results are quite clear and robust and repeated over time. So we use those to design, for example, the correct advertisement for this type of product, and it, you know, which type of, you know, advertisement for that type of product. So whether we're marketing a new cell phone or marketing a, you know, brand of chewing gum, we know based on this theoretical model what type of advertisement we need to do and what information to include.
I haven't. This is the first time I hear of that, and it seems like it's something you wouldn't think of. Maybe or at least from my perception, it's like you just choose a way to go, and you think this is a good way of communication. But in fact, it's been studied, from what I understand. And yeah, and people know. My question was kind of focusing on the fact that we're doing like practical exercises in class. So in the marketing, for example, we like the homework and the team project and that kind of stuff. So there's kind of
for example, talking about like product development, how to growth strategies, things
the basic
like that.
stuff.
You know, that's one thing that we like to do in the class, is not just provide so-called like knowledge, but more like how to think. You know, how to think about marketing problems, how to solve the problems. So we give certain analytical frameworks, like you probably have heard, you know, the SWOT analysis. Like everybody knows that, but also like in, you know, certain frameworks that simplify the ability of the person, the decision of the marketer, to come up with new strategies. So there's like this, remember the product market expansion grid, right? Mm-hmm. To how do you kind of chart the avenues toward growth? So it proposes 4 strategies for growth. So we ask students to use this product market expansion grid and come up with opportunities for growth based on real life cases. So we have companies come into AUBG, they're kind enough, they want to form relationships with us too, because they also get access to our graduates. Companies here, they love AUBG graduates, so they love them. There's so many, I'm telling you, like the best companies in Bulgaria and around the world, I mean, they love AUBG. So, for example, this last year we had Coca-Cola. Remember, they came in. Who was the other one? Foodobox. They came in. This year we have Nestle, and we have another smaller company called Starseeds Naturals that's actually started by an AUBG alumna.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's a sustainable business, a sustainable cosmetics company started by Ilyana Petrova, an AUB graduate. And so we have companies come in and they present themselves. They make a presentation and they outline like their, the challenges that they're facing and their marketing situation. And then the students go and they work on them based on these frameworks that they're given. And they may write a marketing plan, for example, to help them.
Yeah. I was gonna kind of continue in this direction, but the model you mentioned, was it a theory or a model?
The product market expansion grid?
No, the one before that.
Elaboration likelihood model. Yeah,
yes,
it's a model. Theoretical model.
The theoretical model. You got me thinking. When you were, for example, working in that, like help the advertising team in Soutash, did they rely on these things?
This is funny. The level of marketing knowledge in Turkey at the time when I was working there was relatively low. Like, they were, because America, I hate to say it, but it's just, they've been doing marketing for decades upon decades. And, the economy was so big and the competition so strong that they were always looking to get the best marketing. So I grew up in this marketing environment. And so then I was trained as a marketer and got the master's in business administration, which was very applied, very focused on application. Then I got a Ph.D. in marketing, focusing on consumer behavior, consumer research, and brand equity was also a specialization. So a lot of the things that that I saw as like so obvious. I mean, it was like, to me, it was like so clear we should do this. They didn't see it and they didn't understand it. And I'm talking not even just internally to the company, but like the agencies we would work with. The top advertising agencies, the top marketing research agencies, they just, they didn't have the same level of expertise or knowledge that I had, not just from my PhD, but also from just living in America. So it was funny. Like I did get into many situations, but one situation in particular was the argument was made from the agency, our advertising agency, that we could not put a lot of text on an outdoor advertisement. So it was imagine a bus, like you've seen these, like on the bus stops, like the bus shelters, they have these big posters, and typically they're quite simple. Outdoor advertising is typically quite simple because sometimes like a billboard, you're riding by in a car, you don't have time to process a lot of information. But for this one promotion we were running, I wanted to put the entire, as if it was like almost like a magazine ad, onto this bus shelter, because we had this opportunity to use train and bus shelter advertising and like train platform. And my argument was, people are sitting waiting for a bus. They're sitting waiting for a train, and it's sitting there right there. So it's like a captive audience. So I argued, I said, look, if people have the time and the effort that they're going to want to put into reading something. So it's like they were just thinking like the standard rule of outdoor advertising is you don't put more than like 12 words on it. But this was special. This is different. This is like people sitting and standing waiting for a bus or waiting for, a train or a taxi. So I convinced them to, like put this on and just make it that way, and it worked.
That's one instance of breaking the rules, I guess.
Yeah, it is.
Wow. And didn't you think like people would stare at their phones or something, or was that before that?
This is before smartphones.
Okay.
Believe it or not.
Okay.
I'm showing my age here, but yeah, the world didn't always have smartphones.
Okay. Well, that's good. Okay, I guess we're approaching the end here, so maybe we can. I remember. The question I wanted to ask was, because you studied psychology on 2 occasions, like with minoring and that kind of stuff. When you were designing some of these like campaigns and everything, did you feel like kind of conflicted at some point about communicating? Like, did you feel like you're scamming people or something like that? I don't think is the right phrase.
I understand. You're saying like misleading, perhaps, or manipulating. Maybe is the word you're looking for. Well, I can tell you that again, Soutash this is the company where I worked and developed for 4 years. They were an extremely ethical company. Like they do not want to mislead the consumers at all in terms of their product design, in terms of the amount of product they give. Like some companies would try to, for example, take a little bit out and make the package look bigger. But our company, our CEO, he would not allow that kind of stuff. He said, no, we're going to give the full amount, 1 kilogram or 1,000 grams or 1 liter. We're never going to cheat the consumer. Mm-hmm. And in our advertising, even you would not believe it, he caught something in our advertising and said, I don't want to do that because I think it might lead to children like climbing on a bicycle and falling off. Because like the advertisement showed a child kind of climbing on their parents' bike because they want to grow up fast, so they get to try to get on the big bicycle. So he made the advertising team put chairs next to the bicycle to stabilize it, to show that and have the parent in the background watching, so that they didn't show like a child potentially, in a situation to injure themselves. So in that, we never did anything that I felt, would manipulate or would be unethical. And it was always in line with the company's good values, which that's what made me proud. Actually, that's one of the things which I love Soutash the most, is because, and it's the thing that energized me, and one of the things was like this Muharrem Yilmaz, the owner and the CEO, he was so passionate about the goodness of what we were doing, and that milk was a very pure product. It's like, not like Coca-Cola. I don't want to say anything bad, sorry, about any company, but it's just, not a chemical, not bad for you. It's like good. And this was one of the things that motivated me so much to do my best, was I believed in the goodness of the company. So in my history of advertising and marketing, I don't think I've ever done anything that I can consider to be unethical or, manipulative, let's say.
That's great to hear, and I think that's a wonderful note to end it on, actually. Do you have anything else you want to say as a final thought?
I want to say, actually, you didn't ask me how I like it here, for example, how I like it at AUBG, and I just want to say how much I love it here, and that the reason is the students, and I'm not just saying this to butter anybody up, but I'll tell you honestly, when I'm with my colleagues, especially like the new ones that are here for like the first year or two, and we're talking among people, we always come back and say, it's the students, the how good the students are, how enthusiastic to learn, how motivated they are, how interested they are, how interesting they are, how good, and it's the thing that makes being at AUBG something special. I can say different from any other university I've ever been at. We work hard here. I think the students are very demanding, let's say. They really want the best. They want you to be on your best game. And we work a lot, and we do a lot of service work, but the payoff is just how good the students are. And this is what makes me happy to be here.
I'm so glad I asked you about your final thoughts, because that's a wonderful thing. And I've heard that said from many professors, not like just one.
It's true. It's really true.
And it's really nice to hear as a student that an effort is being recognized, and it's even impressing someone who's there to teach you. So, thank you.
I thank you.
And we're off.